Haunt. My name is John, and I'm 43 years old. At my college graduation, my dad called me a failure in front of everyone. He said I'd never amount to anything. Those words haunted me for 15 years. I built my life from nothing, became someone he never thought I could be. Then one day, fate put us face to face again. He was lying in a hospital bed, and my name was on his bill. He didn't know I'd become the doctor who could save his life. What happened next changed everything between us. This is my story about family, failure, and the moment truth finally caught up with my father. Standing on that graduation stage 15 years ago, wearing my cap and gown with my bachelor's degree in hand, I should have felt proud. I should have felt accomplished. Instead, I felt my father's eyes burning into me from the audience, and I knew what was coming. Robert Mitchell had never been the kind of dad who handed out compliments. He was a self-made construction company owner who believed in tough love, except there was never much love in it. Just tough. My older brother Daniel had graduated from business school 3 years earlier, and Dad threw him a party that cost more than my entire college tuition. He bragged about Daniel to everyone who'd listen, but me. I was the disappointment, the one who chose nursing instead of business, the one who didn't follow the family path. After the ceremony, my mom hugged me tight and whispered that she was proud. My little sister Emma squeezed my hand and smiled, but Dad stood there with his arms crossed, that familiar scowl on his face. Family and friends gathered around to congratulate me, and that's when he said it, loud enough for everyone to hear. Well, John finally finished something. Took him long enough, for years, to become a nurse. That's what I paid all that money for. Good. My son, the failure, who's going to spend his life emptying bedpans and taking orders from real doctors. The crowd went silent. My mom's face turned red. Emma looked at the ground. I stood there holding my diploma, feeling like I was 6 years old again, getting yelled at for not throwing a baseball correctly. My father had always compared me to Daniel, always made it clear I wasn't good enough. But this was different. This was public humiliation at what should have been one of the proudest moments of my life. I looked him in the eye and said, "I'm going to help people. Dad, that's worth something." He laughed, actually laughed. "Help people? You're going to be wiping butts and changing sheets. Real impressive, son. Daniel's already making 6 figures at my company. What are you going to make? 30,000 a year, maybe 40 if you're lucky. I wasted my money on you. Cute booch." I walked away that day and made myself a promise. I would prove him wrong. Not for him, for me. I would become more than he ever thought I could be. My father had called me a failure in front of everyone I cared about, but I would turn that pain into fuel. Have you ever had someone you love cut you down at your highest moment? Have you ever wondered if you could rise above their cruelty and prove them wrong? That's exactly what I set out to do. The first few years were brutal. I worked as a registered nurse at County General Hospital, pulling double shifts, taking every extra hour I could get. The work was exhausting, but I loved it. I loved helping patients, being there for people in their most vulnerable moments. But I wanted more. I wanted to be the one making the critical decisions, the one with the knowledge and skills to truly save lives. So I started studying for the MCAT while working full-time. My colleagues thought I was crazy. My girlfriend at the time said I was obsessing over proving something to a man who'd never appreciate it. She was probably right, but I couldn't stop. Every time I wanted to quit, I heard my father's voice in my head. Failure. That word became my motivation. I didn't attend family gatherings for 2 years. My mom would call and beg me to come to Thanksgiving, Christmas, Daniel's wedding. I made excuses. The truth was, I couldn't face my father until I had something to show him. Something that would make him see me differently. Emma would text me updates about the family. Dad's construction business was booming. Daniel was running operations and making Dad proud every single day. They'd bought a bigger house. Dad drove a new Mercedes. Everything was perfect in the Mitchell family, except I wasn't part of it anymore. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. When I got accepted to medical school at 30 years old, I called my mom first. She cried with joy. She said she always knew I could do it. Emma screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. But I didn't call my dad. I didn't tell him at all. Let him think I was still just a nurse, still just his failure of a son. Medical school was harder than anything I'd ever done. I was older than most of my classmates, working part-time to help cover expenses, studying until my eyes burned. But I thrived on it. Every anatomy exam, every clinical rotation, every bit of knowledge I absorbed made me feel stronger, more capable, more worthy. 4 years later, I graduated from medical school. My mom and Emma came to the ceremony. Dad didn't even know about it. I matched into a surgery residency, one of the most competitive specialties. The kid who was only good enough to empty bedpans was going to be a surgeon. The irony wasn't lost on me. Surgery residencies where doctors are forged in fire, 100-hour weeks, life and death decisions, learning to hold a human heart in your hands and fix it. I was pushed to my absolute limits, and I loved every second of it. My attending physicians saw something in me. Steady hands, clear thinking under pressure, compassion mixed with competence. By my 3rd year of residency, I was being groomed for a fellowship in cardiothoracic surgery. I still hadn't spoken to my father in over a decade. Mom would pass along information through Emma. Dad had asked about me a few times. She said, wondered what I was up to. But he never picked up the phone, never apologized, never took back what he'd said at my graduation, and honestly, I didn't need him to anymore. I was doing this for myself now. The anger had transformed into something else. Pride, purpose, self-worth that didn't depend on Robert Mitchell's approval. When I finished my residency and fellowship, I was recruited by Memorial Medical Center, one of the top cardiac surgery programs in the state. I was 39 years old, a board-certified cardiothoracic surgeon, and I was good at what I did. Really good. Within 2 years, I'd built a reputation for taking complex cases other surgeons wouldn't touch. I'd saved lives that everyone else had written off. The nurse who was supposed to be a failure had become one of the most respected surgeons in the region. My father still didn't know. I kept my personal life private, used my mother's maiden name on social media, and avoided any situation where word might get back to him. Part of me wanted him to find out organically, to hear through the grapevine that his failure son had become a success. But the universe had something better planned. Do you think success is the best revenge? Or is it something deeper? Something that forces a person to confront what they've done? Keep watching, because that confrontation was coming. It was a Tuesday morning when I got the call from the ER trauma case coming in. Male, 68 years old, massive heart attack, unstable. They were prepping him for emergency surgery. I was the surgeon on call. I scrubbed in, went over the charts, and headed to the OR. Patient was already under anesthesia when I walked in, but I glanced at the chart one more time before making the first incision. Robert Mitchell, age 68. My hands froze. The nurses looked at me, concerned. "Doctor, are you okay?" I nodded, forcing myself to focus. This was my father on the table. The man who'd called me a failure was now depending on me to save his life. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. Everything in me wanted to look at his face, to see him vulnerable and unconscious at my mercy. But I couldn't think about that. He was a patient. Nothing more, nothing less. I'd taken an oath to help people regardless of who they were or what they'd done. So I pushed every emotion aside and did what I was trained to do. The surgery took 6 hours. His heart had sustained significant damage. We had to bypass 3 blocked arteries and repair tissue that was barely hanging on. It was one of the most complex procedures I'd performed in months. My team was incredible, and we worked with precision and care. When I finally closed him up and confirmed his vitals were stable, I felt the weight of what had just happened hit me like a truck. I'd saved my father's life. The man who told me I'd never amount to anything was alive because of skills he'd mocked me for pursuing. The failure had become his savior. I stepped out of the OR, stripped off my gloves, and sat down in the hallway. One of the nurses who'd been in the surgery sat beside me. "That was incredible work. Dr. Mitchell, you saved him." I nodded, unable to speak. She didn't know he was my father. Nobody did. I'd kept that detail to myself. When my dad woke up in recovery, he'd be confused, groggy, in pain. But eventually, he'd ask questions. Eventually, he'd want to know who'd operated on him. I went home that night and didn't sleep. I kept replaying the surgery in my mind, kept thinking about all the years of pain and anger. My father had shaped so much of who I became, even in his cruelty. Especially in his cruelty. Without his words, would I have pushed myself this hard? Would I have become a surgeon? I wanted to say yes, that my success was entirely my own. But the truth was more complicated. His rejection had lit a fire in me that never went out. The next morning, I returned to the hospital to check on my post-op patients. My father was awake, stable, and asking questions. The nurse told me he wanted to speak with his surgeon. I stood outside his room for a long moment, gathering courage. Then I walked in. He looked small in that hospital bed, weak, vulnerable, so different from the larger-than-life figure who dominated my childhood. He looked up at me, squinting, trying to focus. "You're the surgeon," I nodded. "Yes, sir. I'm Dr. Kleachel. I performed your cardiac bypass surgery yesterday." His eyes widened. "Mitchell, you family." I could have lied, could have said it was a common name, just a coincidence, but I didn't. "I'm your son, Dad. I'm John." The color drained from his face. He stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. "John, but you're a nurse, you." His voice trailed off as realization hit him. All those years, all those assumptions, he had no idea what I'd become. "I was a nurse," I said calmly. "Good." Then I went to medical school. Then I did a residency in surgery and a fellowship in cardiothoracic surgery. I've been a surgeon for 4 years now, and yesterday I saved your life. He closed his eyes and I saw something I'd never seen before. Tears. My father was crying. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I didn't know." Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. I pulled up a chair and sat down. You didn't know because you never asked. Quote, "You decided who I was at my graduation 15 years ago. You called me a failure in front of everyone, and you never looked back. You never checked in, never wondered if maybe you'd been wrong." He opened his eyes and looked at me, really looked at me. "I was wrong, John. I was so wrong. I thought I was pushing you to be better, to be more like Daniel, but I was just cruel. I was just a mean old man who couldn't see past his own ego." His voice broke. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Per years, I'd imagined this moment. I'd imagined him begging for forgiveness, and I'd pictured myself walking away, leaving him with the same pain he'd left me with. But sitting there in that hospital room, looking at my father weak and broken and genuinely remorseful, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just sadness. Sadness for all the years we'd lost. Sadness for the relationship we never had. "I became a surgeon because you called me a failure," I said quietly. "Every time I wanted to quit, I heard your voice in my head. I used your cruelty as fuel, and it worked. I became everything you said I couldn't be. But Dad, I didn't do it for you. I did it for me. And now I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your apology. I already know my worth." He nodded, more tears streaming down his face. "You're a better man than I ever was." I stood up, checking his chart, slipping back into doctor mode. "You're going to need a few weeks of recovery. Follow the cardiac rehab protocol exactly. No stress. Healthy diet. Light exercise when cleared. You've got a second chance here. Don't waste it." As I turned to leave, he called out, "John, thank you for saving my life, for being the man you are despite having me as a father." I paused at the door. "You're welcome, Dad." Over the next few weeks, I monitored his recovery. He progressed well, his heart healing, his strength returning. My mom visited him every day, and Emma came by when she could. Daniel showed up once, awkward and uncomfortable, clearly not knowing what to say to me after all these years. Dad told him all what had happened, how his failure of a son had become his surgeon, how John, the disappointment, had saved his life. The story spread through the family like wildfire. Mom called me crying, saying she'd always believed in me and was so proud. Emma texted me novels about how she'd always looked up to me and knew I'd do great things. Daniel sent a short message. "Hey man, long time dad told me everything. That's really impressive. We should catch up." I appreciated the gestures, but they felt hollow. These people had stood by while my father humiliated me. They'd let it happen. They'd chosen sides, and it wasn't mine. Still, I responded politely. I wasn't angry anymore, just distant. Call. Some damage can't be fully repaired, and that's okay. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. My father called me a month after his surgery. He'd been discharged, was doing his rehab, following all the rules. "John, I know I don't have the right to ask this, but would you come to dinner? Just family. I want to say some things properly." I almost said no. Almost told him it was too late, that we'd said everything that needed to be said in that hospital room. But something made me agree. Maybe curiosity. Maybe a small hope that real healing was possible. Maybe I just wanted to see if he'd changed. I showed up at my parents' house on a Saturday evening. It felt strange walking through that front door after so many years. Everything looked the same, but different. Older. Worn. Mom hugged me tight and wouldn't let go. Emma jumped up and down like she was a kid again. Daniel shook my hand, still awkward, still not quite knowing how to bridge the gap between us. And Dad stood there, thinner than I remembered, older, with surgical scars hidden under his shirt. Scars I'd put there while saving his life. We sat down for dinner, and it was uncomfortable at first. Small talk about the weather, about Emma's job, about Mom's garden. Then Dad cleared his throat and stood up. "I asked John here tonight because I owe him more than just an apology in a hospital room. Cohen turned to all of you." The table went quiet. 15 years ago, I said something to John at his graduation that I've regretted ever since. I called him a failure. I mocked his choice to become a nurse. I told him he'd wasted my money and would never amount to anything. I did that because I was a proud, stubborn fool who thought there was only one path to success, and it looked like the path I'd taken. He looked directly at me. John didn't just prove me wrong, showed me what real strength looks like. He became a nurse, which takes compassion and dedication I never had. Then he went to medical school while working full-time, which takes a drive I never needed because everything came easy to me. Then he became a surgeon, one of the best in the state, which takes a brilliance I never possessed. And then, when fate put me on his operating table, he saved my life. The son I called a failure saved his father's life. If that's not the definition of success, I don't know what is. His voice shook with emotion. "John, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every cruel word, every comparison to Daniel. Every time I made you feel less than, you were never a failure. I was the failure. I failed you as a father." The room was silent except for Mom's quiet crying. I sat there feeling a mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. Relief, vindication, grief for lost time, and maybe, just maybe, the smallest seed of forgiveness. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. "Dad," I said slowly, "I appreciate you saying that. I really do. But I need you to understand something. I didn't become who I am to prove you wrong. I became who I am to prove myself right. To prove that I had value, that my choices mattered, that I could build a life worth living on my own terms. Your approval stopped mattering to me somewhere along the way. And that's actually a good thing. It means I'm free." "Creep." He nodded, sitting back down. "I know, and I'm glad. You're free of me, free of my expectations, free of my small-minded view of what success looks like. You're your own man, and you're a damn good one." Dinner continued, more relaxed this time. We shared stories, some laughs, some tears. Daniel admitted he'd always felt the pressure of being the favorite, that it wasn't as great as it seemed. Emma talked about how she'd always defended me to Dad, even when I wasn't around. Mom just held my hand and smiled, happy to have her family together again. As the evening wound down, Dad pulled me aside. "John, I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't expect us to have the relationship we should have had. But I want you to know that I'm going to spend whatever time I have left trying to be a better man. The kind of man you already are. I looked at this man who'd caused me so much pain, who'd also inadvertently pushed me to greatness, who was now humbled and broken and trying. Dad, I do forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I forgive you so I can move forward without carrying this weight. But forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It just means I'm not letting it define my future. He hugged me then, tight and desperate, like he was afraid I'd disappear. Thank you, son. Thank you. I hugged him back, feeling something shift inside me. Not complete healing, not a magical restoration of what we'd never had. Just a small opening where maybe, eventually, something new could grow. Driving home that night, I thought about the strange path my life had taken, how a moment of humiliation had become the catalyst for my greatest achievements, how the man who'd hurt me most had ended up on my operating table, his life in my hands. Tout justice sometimes looks different than we expect. I didn't gloat over my success or rub it in my father's face. I didn't need to. The truth was victory enough. Have you ever experienced a moment where everything came full circle? Where the person who doubted you most had to face the reality of who you'd become? That's powerful. That's the kind of justice that changes everyone involved. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. Months passed. My father and I built something that vaguely resembled a relationship. We had coffee occasionally. He came to watch me speak at a medical conference. He told people with genuine pride that his son was a cardiothoracic surgeon. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of awkwardness, of unspoken pain, but it was something more than we'd had in 15 years. Daniel and I also reconnected, slowly. He admitted he'd always felt guilty about being the favored son, about not standing up for me. We weren't close, but we were civil. Brothers learning to see each other as adults rather than the roles we'd been assigned as kids. Emma became my biggest cheerleader, attending every family event to make sure I felt included, sending me articles about surgery and medicine, just generally being the supportive sister she'd always been. Mom was thrilled to have her family back together, even in this imperfect form. She'd call me weekly just to check in, to tell me she loved me, to make sure I knew she'd always believed in me. And me. I kept doing what I loved, saving lives, teaching residents, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in cardiac surgery. I'd built a life that meant something, that helped people, that reflected my values and my choices. Cut. My father's words at my graduation had hurt me deeply, had haunted me for years. But they hadn't destroyed me. They'd forged me into something stronger. One afternoon, I was in my office between surgeries when my father called. John, I just wanted to tell you something. I was at the country club today, and Bill Henderson asked about you. I told him you're a cardiothoracic surgeon at Memorial. You should have seen his face. He remembered you as a kid, remembered when you said you wanted to be a nurse. He said, Robert, you must be so proud. And you know what? I am. I'm proud of you, son. So damn proud. Hearing those words I'd craved as a child and thought I'd moved past needing, hit me harder than I expected. My eyes stung with unexpected tears. Thanks, Dad. That means something. I know I'm late, he said quietly. I know I should have said it 15 years ago, at your nursing graduation. Pre-AI should have said it when you got into medical school, when you finished residency, when you performed your first surgery. I should have said it 1,000 times. But I'm saying it now, and I'll keep saying it for as long as I'm around. I'm proud of you, John. You're an incredible man, an incredible doctor, and a better person than I ever taught you to be. You became that despite me, not because of me. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. Dad, I said, my voice thick with emotion, you did teach me something important. You taught me how not to treat people. You taught me that a person's worth isn't measured by their paycheck or their job title. You taught me, through negative example, to be kind, to be supportive, to lift people up instead of tearing them down. So maybe you contributed to who I am in a backward kind of way. He laughed, though it sounded sad. Leave it to you to find something positive even in my failures. You're a better man than me, John. Always have been. We talked for a while longer, and when we hung up, I sat in my office feeling a sense of closure I didn't know I needed. My father wasn't perfect. Our relationship would never be what it could have been if he'd been different, if he'd been better. But he was trying now, and that counted for something. More importantly, I'd proven to myself that I was enough, that I had value, that my choices were valid and my path was worth walking. That's the real victory, not revenge, not making someone grovel, but knowing deep in your bones that you are exactly who you're meant to be. Years later, I performed another surgery on my father. Routine this time, fixing a valve that had started to fail. He joked before going under that he was glad I was the one holding the scalpel, that he trusted me more than anyone in the world. I joked back that he should probably keep his opinions to himself until after I'd finished. We could do that now. Laugh together. Share moments of genuine connection. It wasn't everything I'd wanted as a kid, but it was something. And sometimes something is enough. I think about that graduation day often, about standing on that stage, holding my nursing degree, hearing my father call me a failure, feeling the shame and anger wash over me. If I could go back and tell that 25-year-old version of myself anything, I'd say this: his words don't define you. His disappointment doesn't diminish you. His inability to see your value doesn't mean you have no value. Keep going. Keep pushing. Keep believing in yourself even when the people who should believe in you don't. Because one day, you'll be standing in an O are saving his life, and you'll realize you were never the failure. You were always enough. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button and comment on this video. Called the nurses I worked with at County General all those years ago sometimes reach out on social media. They see that I became a surgeon and send congratulatory messages. Some say they always knew I'd do great things. Others admit they thought I was crazy for attempting medical school at 30, but they all say they're proud of me, and that means something too. Because those were the people who saw me at my lowest, who watched me work double shifts while studying for the MAC hat, who encouraged me when I wanted to quit. They were the family I chose when my blood family failed me. I've mentored several nursing students who want to become doctors. I tell them my story, not to brag, but to show them it's possible. That starting one place doesn't mean you have to stay there. That other people's limitations aren't your limitations. Giving up on yourself. Some of them send me updates years later. Dr. Mitchell, I just got accepted to medical school. Dr. Mitchell, I finished my residency. Dr. Mitchell, I performed my first solo surgery today. Those messages fill me with more pride than any award or recognition I've ever received. My father's health has continued to decline over the years. The heart disease is progressive, and we both know his time is limited. But the years we've had since that hospital room confrontation have been good ones. Not perfect, but good. He came to my wedding 2 years ago, walked my bride down the aisle alongside her father, tears streaming down his face the whole time. He told her she was getting the best man he knew, which made both of us cry. He's met his grandkids from Daniel and gushes about them constantly. He asks when I'm going to have kids so he can have more grandchildren to spoil. Become, in his final years, the father he should have been all along. Is it enough to make up for all those years of cruelty? No. Can you really erase decades of pain with a few years of effort? Probably not. But it's something. It's an attempt. It's a man confronting his failures and trying to be better. And I respect that, even as I acknowledge the scars that remain. Forgiveness is complicated. It's not a light switch. You flip and suddenly everything is fine. Processed. A choice you make over and over. A gradual softening of hard edges. I've forgiven my father, but I haven't forgotten, and that's okay. Both things can be true at once. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. Last month, my father gave me something unexpected. A letter. He said he'd been working on it for months, wanted to get the words right. I opened it in my car after leaving his house, and I cried reading it. Quote, Cade. He detailed every regret, every moment he wished he could take back. Every word he wished he'd said differently. He wrote about watching me graduate from nursing school and feeling ashamed of his reaction. but being too proud to admit it. He wrote about the years I was absent from family gatherings and how he'd sit at the table wishing I was there, but being too stubborn to pick up the phone. Quitty. He wrote about the moment he woke up in the hospital and learned I'd saved his life, how it shattered every assumption he'd had about success and failure. The last paragraph destroyed me. John, you saved my life twice. Once on the operating table when you repaired my broken heart, and once in that hospital room when you forgave me despite having every right not to. You showed me what true strength looks like, what true success looks like, what being a real man looks like. I'm sorry I couldn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I wasted so many years being blind and proud. But I see you now, son. I see you, and I'm in awe of who you are. Thank you for being patient with a foolish old man. Thank you for giving me a chance to know you. Thank you for being the man I failed to raise, the man you raised yourself to be. I love you, and I'm proud of you, and I'll spend my remaining days making sure everyone knows it. I keep that letter in my office desk. On hard days, when I lose a patient or a surgery doesn't go as planned, when I doubt myself or wonder if I'm good enough, I read it. Not because I need my father's approval anymore, but because it reminds me of how far I've come. From that humiliated college graduate to a respected surgeon, from a young man seeking validation to a man who knows his own worth, from someone defined by another person's cruelty to someone defined by his own choices and actions, that journey matters. That transformation is the real success story. People sometimes ask me if I'm glad my father called me a failure. They want me to say it was the best thing that ever happened to me, that I'm grateful for the motivation. But I'm not glad. I'm not grateful for the pain. I wish I'd had a supportive father who believed in me from the start. I wish I'd had encouragement instead of cruelty, pride instead of shame. But I'm grateful for who I became in spite of it all. Grateful for the strength I discovered, the resilience I built, the person I chose to be when I could have become bitter and broken. That's the difference. I'm not grateful for what he did. I'm grateful for what I did with it. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. Today, I'm 43 years old. I've performed over 1,000 cardiac surgeries. I've saved hundreds of lives. I've taught dozens of residents who've gone on to save thousands more. Pre-eared, I've built a career that matters, a reputation that reflects my skills and dedication, a life that aligns with my values. And yes, I've reconciled with my father, though our relationship will always carry the weight of what was said and what was lost. But I've made peace with that. I've made peace with him. Most importantly, I've made peace with myself. If you're reading this, if you're watching this, if you've ever been called a failure by someone who should have supported you, hear me. They're wrong. Their inability to see your potential doesn't mean you have no potential. Their failure to believe in you doesn't mean you're unworthy of belief. Their words only have the power you give them. You can use them as fuel, like I did, or you can let them go entirely. Either way, don't let them define you. Define yourself. Choose your path. Build your life. Become who you're meant to be, not who they think you should be. My name is John. I'm 43 years old. And my father called me a failure at my graduation 15 years ago. But I'm not a failure. I never was. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. I'm a healer. I'm a mentor. I'm a son who chose forgiveness over bitterness. I'm a man who proved that success isn't about money or status or family approval. It's about living authentically, helping others, and knowing your worth regardless of what anyone else thinks. That's my story. That's my truth. And if my father's cruelty became the catalyst for my growth, then maybe there's a strange kind of justice in that after all. Not the revenge I once fantasized about, but something better, something real, something earned. 15 years ago, I was called a failure. Today, I'm called Dr. Bose. Statements were made by the same man. But only one of them is true. Only one of them matters. Only one of them reflects who I actually am. And that makes all the difference. That's the power we have, to decide which voices we listen to, which opinions we internalize, which versions of ourselves we choose to become. I chose to become someone who helps people, who saves lives, who rises above cruelty and transforms pain into purpose. That's not failure. That's triumph. That's victory. That's success on my own terms. And it's sweeter than any revenge could ever be. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. Share your story in the comments. Have you ever proven someone wrong who doubted you? How did it feel? What did you learn? Let's build a community of people who refused to accept other people's limitations and became more than anyone expected. Cool. The years following my reconciliation with my father brought unexpected changes to our entire family dynamic. Daniel started coming to me for advice, which was strange at first. The golden child seeking guidance from the former failure, he admitted that running Dad's construction company felt hollow, that he'd never chosen it for himself. I was just doing what was expected. He told me over coffee one afternoon, "You had the guts to follow your own path. I just followed Dad's." We talked for hours that day about choices, regrets, and the courage it takes to live authentically. My brother, who I'd envied and resented for so long, had his own struggles I'd never seen. Emma got engaged and asked me to walk her down the aisle alongside. "Dad, you're both my fathers in different ways," she explained. "Dad gave me life, but you showed me what integrity looks like. You showed me that you can survive family dysfunction and come out stronger. I need you both there." Standing on either side of my sister, walking her toward her future, I felt a completeness I hadn't known was missing. My father squeezed my shoulder as we reached the altar, and I saw tears in his eyes. "We made it here together," he whispered. "Thank you for not giving up on us." My mother pulled me aside at the reception. "John, I need to apologize too. I stood by while your father hurt you. I should have protected you, should have defended you, should have told him he was wrong. I was weak, and you paid the price. I'm so sorry, honey." I hugged her tight. "Mom, you did what you could in an impossible situation. You always told me you were proud of me. You always believed in me quietly. That mattered more than you know." She cried into my shoulder, releasing years of guilt she'd carried. Healing wasn't just between my father and me. It rippled through our entire family, touching everyone who'd been affected by that toxic dynamic. My practice continued to grow. I became the head of cardiothoracic surgery at Memorial Medical Center at 41, the youngest person to ever hold that position. The hospital administration cited my surgical outcomes, my leadership with residents, and my reputation in the medical community. During my acceptance speech, I talked about my journey from nursing to medicine, about the importance of believing in yourself when others don't, about turning obstacles into opportunities. My father was in the audience, beaming with pride. After the speech, at least a dozen people approached him to congratulate him on raising such an accomplished son. He didn't take credit. He told them all the same thing. "John did this himself, despite me, not because of me. He's the strongest person I know." That humility, that acknowledgement of his failures and my independent success meant more than any praise he could have given. He wasn't trying to claim my achievements as his own. He wasn't rewriting history to make himself look better. He was telling the truth, and the truth set both of us free in different ways. I started receiving invitations to speak at medical schools and nursing programs across the country. I'd share my story of transitioning from nursing to medicine, of overcoming family opposition, of building a career that aligned with my passions. After every speech, students would approach me with tears in their eyes, telling me their own stories of family members who didn't support them, parents who didn't understand their choices, loved ones who called them foolish or impractical. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. I'd tell them what I wish someone had told me. Their doubt is about their limitations, not yours. Their fear is about their experiences, not your potential. Their criticism is about their values, not your worth. Keep going, keep believing, keep building the life you know you're meant to live. Many of those students stayed in touch over the years, sending updates about their progress, their achievements, their own moments of proving doubters wrong. Watching them succeed felt like multiplying my own victory 1,000 times over. I wasn't just healing from my own wounds, I was helping others heal from theirs. One of those students, a young woman named Sarah, reminded me so much of myself. She was a nurse who wanted to become a surgeon, but her family insisted it was too hard, too expensive, too unlikely. Her father, a mechanic, told her she should be grateful to have a stable nursing job and stop reaching for things beyond her grasp. I mentored her through her MCAT preparation, her medical school applications, her acceptance, and her journey through medical school. When she matched into a surgical residency, she called me sobbing with joy. "Dr. Mitchell, I did it. I actually did it." And my dad was at the match ceremony. He hugged me and said he was wrong about me. He said I was the bravest person he knows. I smiled, remembering my own journey. "That's incredible, Sarah. How does it feel?" She laughed through her tears. "It feels like freedom. Like I finally proved to myself that I'm capable of anything I set my mind to. His approval is nice, but I don't need it anymore. I already know who I am. That's when you know someone has truly arrived. When external validation becomes pleasant but not necessary. When their sense of self-worth is internally generated rather than externally dependent. Sarah had reached that place. So had I. It's a powerful place to live from. My father's health continued its slow decline. His heart, even with the repairs I'd made, was weakening. He knew his time was limited, and he became intentional about how he spent it. He retired from the construction company, handing full control to Daniel. He traveled with my mother to places they'd always talked about but never visited. He spent time with his grandchildren, teaching them things, playing with them, being the grandfather he wished he'd been a father. And he spent time with me, just talking, sharing stories, building memories we should have been building all along. Creed. One afternoon, sitting on his back porch watching the sunset, he said something that surprised me. "John, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Do you think you would have become a surgeon if I'd supported you from the beginning? If I'd been proud of you for becoming a nurse and encouraged you every step of the way? Would you have pushed yourself as hard as you did?" I thought about it carefully. "I don't know, Dad. Maybe not. Maybe I would have been content as a nurse. Maybe I wouldn't have felt the need to prove anything. But here's the thing. I wish I'd been given the chance to find out. I wish my motivation had been pure passion instead of mixed with pain and a need to prove you wrong. I'm grateful for who I became, but I'm not grateful for how it happened. There's a difference." He nodded slowly. "That's fair. That's more than fair. I wish I could go back and do it differently, support you properly, believe in you from the start. But I can't. All I can do is be better now and hope it's enough." We sat in silence for a while, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Finally, I said, "Dad, it is enough. Not because it erases the past, but because it shows growth. You're not the same man who humiliated me at graduation. You've changed. You've evolved. You've become someone capable of admitting fault and making amends. That's actually pretty rare. Most people double down on their mistakes rather than acknowledging them. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button and comment on this video." He reached over and squeezed my hand. "I love you, son. I should have said it more when you were growing up. I should have said it every day. But I'm saying it now, and I'll say it every time I see you, until I can't say it anymore." Tears stung my eyes. "I love you too, Dad. Despite everything, or maybe because of everything, I love you." Code that moment. That simple exchange of love and acknowledgement felt like the final piece of healing clicking into place. We weren't perfect. Our relationship would always bear scars. But we were real. We were honest. We were present with each other in a way we'd never been before. The hospital threw a gala fundraiser, and I was honored for my contributions to the cardiac program. My entire family attended, dressed up and proud. Dad gave a speech that wasn't on the program. He just stood up during dinner and asked for the microphone. "I need to say something about my son, John. 15 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I called him a failure at his college graduation. I mocked his choice to become a nurse. I told him he'd never amount to anything. Tonight, I'm standing in a room full of people who know the truth. John isn't just a success, he's extraordinary. He's saved hundreds of lives. He's trained the next generation of surgeons, built a career based on compassion, skill, and dedication. And most impressively, when I ended up on his operating table when my life was in his hands, he saved me anyway. That's the measure of a man. Not what he achieves, but who he becomes. John became someone far better than I ever was. I'm proud to be his father, even though he became great despite my failures, not because of my guidance. John, I love you, son. Thank you for being you. The room erupted in applause. I stood up, overwhelmed, and hugged my father. People were crying. My mom was sobbing. Emma was filming it on her phone. Daniel clapped me on the back and whispered, "You earned this, brother, all of it." That night became a marker in my life, a before and after moment. Before, I was still carrying resentment and pain. After, I was free, truly free. Not because my father's speech fixed everything, but because it represented a complete reversal of the narrative that had defined us. From public humiliation to public acknowledgement, from shame to pride, from failure to success, the journey was complete. I performed my father's final surgery when he was 72. His heart was failing beyond repair, and we both knew this was the end. Before he went under anesthesia, he looked up at me with clarity and peace. "John, if this is it, if I don't wake up, I want you to know I'm grateful. Grateful for these last years. Grateful that you forgave me. Grateful that I got to see who you really are. Thank you, son, for everything." I squeezed his hand, fighting back tears. "Dad, I'm going to do everything I can. But if this is it, know that I'm grateful too, for the reconciliation, for the honesty, for you finally seeing me. I love you." He smiled. "I love you too. Now go work your magic, doctor." The surgery was the hardest I'd ever performed. Not technically, but emotionally. Every suture, every decision, every moment felt weighted with our entire history. My hands were steady, my mind was clear, but my heart was breaking. I was losing my father, not to his cruelty this time, but to time and biology. Despite my skills, despite all I'd learned and achieved, I couldn't stop this. His heart was too damaged to warn. We got him through the surgery, but he never fully recovered. He lived for 3 more months, drifting in and out of consciousness, surrounded by family. Big total forget to subscribe. Hit that like button and comment on this video. In his final days, I sat with him every night after my shifts. Sometimes he was awake and we'd talk. Sometimes he slept and I'd just hold his hand. The night he died, he woke up lucid and clear. "John," I leaned close. "I'm here, Dad." He smiled weakly. "You know what my biggest regret is? Not all the cruel things I said, though those are terrible. It's all the kind things I didn't say. All the times I could have told you I was proud but stayed silent. All the moments I could have supported you but chose criticism instead. That's what I regret most. The missed opportunities to love you better." Tears streamed down my face. "Dad, you're saying them now. That counts. It all counts." He squeezed my hand with what little strength he had left. "Be a better father than I was, John. When you have kids, tell them you're proud every day. Support their dreams even if you don't understand them. Love them loudly and obviously. Promise me." I nodded, unable to speak. "I promise, Dad. I promise." He closed his eyes, content. "Good. That's good. You're going to be an amazing father. You're already an amazing man." Those were his last words to me. He died 2 hours later, peacefully, with our family surrounding him. The funeral was packed with people whose lives he'd touched. Business associates, employees, friends, family. I gave the eulogy, and I was honest. I talked about his flaws and his growth. I talked about the pain he'd caused and the healing he'd pursued. I talked about the journey from that graduation day humiliation to our final conversation. My father wasn't perfect, I said. He made mistakes that hurt deeply and left lasting scars. But in his final years, he did something many people never do. He acknowledged his failures, apologized sincerely, and changed his behavior. He showed me that it's never too late to become a better person. That's his legacy, not his construction company or his money, but his willingness to grow, to change, to love better late than never. I'm grateful for the father he became, even as I grieve the father he could have been all along. After the service, dozens of people approached me with their own stories. Employees who said Dad had become kinder in his final years, more patient, more appreciative. Friends who noticed him talking about me constantly. bragging about my achievements with genuine pride. Distant relatives who remembered him as harsh and critical but saw a different man in recent years. He'd changed, really changed, and people noticed. That gave me comfort. His transformation wasn't just for me. It rippled outward, affecting everyone around him. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment on this video. Cain. Months after his death, I found another letter among his things. My mother gave it to me with tears in her eyes. He wrote this a year ago and asked me to give it to you after he was gone. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a long letter detailing every memory he had of me as a child, as a teenager, as a young man. Moments I'd forgotten or never knew he noticed. Me helping an injured bird when I was 7, me volunteering at a soup kitchen at 15, me staying up all night to help Emma with a school project. I saw your compassion, your kindness, your dedication to helping others from the time you were small, he wrote. I saw who you were meant to be, and it terrified me because it was so different from who I was. Instead of celebrating your uniqueness, I tried to crush it into something familiar. That was my failure, not yours. You were always meant to be a healer. I'm just sorry it took me so long to recognize it and support it. The letter continued with apologies, with expressions of pride, with acknowledgments of specific achievements and qualities he admired. The last paragraph broke me completely. John, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. But I want you to know that the last years of my life were the best because of you. Because you forgave me when you didn't have to. Because you gave me a chance to know you as the man you'd become. Because you saved my life in more ways than one. I'm proud of you. I love you. And I'll carry the image of you in that surgical mask. My son, the surgeon. My son, the hero. My son, the man I failed to raise, but who raised himself to greatness with me into whatever comes next. Thank you for being patient with a foolish old man. Thank you for being you. Love, Dad. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot and sobbed for everything we'd lost, for everything we'd found, for the father who'd hurt me and the father who'd healed.